Welcome to Hump Day Happy Hour. Yes, it's another Wednesday, another glorious day. I was just informed by Chad that I look like an old man and that I should have a walker with tennis balls at the bottom because not only does my good microphone not work, apparently we were having all kinds of AV issues. I've got my old people glasses on, so damn it, this old guy is going to teach you tonight. Anyway, welcome to Hump Day Happy Hour, hosted by Dennis in the Know. This is the webcast where dentistry meets real talk, real news, and just the right amount of sarcasm. We're pulling back the curtain on the industry. We're talking to the experts, the educators, and the innovators. And in fact, we have an innovator tonight, which we'll get to in just a minute. We're also talking to the everyday clinicians who are out there doing the work. There is no fluff, no filter, and definitely no sales pitches disguised as education. If it's happening in dentistry, from clinical insights to regulatory curveballs, or maybe it's the latest scandal at the ADA, we're probably already talking about it, and we are bringing the goods. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned doctor or anyone in the dental industry, or maybe you're just a curious consumer. Maybe you're just here for the banter. We welcome you all to the show because around here, we're not just in the loop, we are in the know. Hey everyone, I am Dr. Jeff Horowitz. I am with only one of my compadres tonight. Well, actually, I'm with two, but one of them is an official Dinks guy. The other guy's been on enough times now that we should make him an official Dinks guy. But tonight, I am with Dr. Chad Duplantis. Dr. Jennifer Bell is out for the evening. We created this humble little platform to make the dental world just a little smaller, but a whole lot more fun. Today, we have a great guest, a great friend of Dennis in the Know, Dr. Matt Burton. This guy, everyday clinician like the rest of us, decided class twos were a little bit of a pain and invented his own matrix system, which he now works with Garrison Dental on. And Garrison Dental and he have partnered together for this amazing system. And he's going to talk to us a little bit tonight about the economics of the Class 2 composite. And while we all kind of diss the Class 2, it's probably one of the most profitable things we do in dentistry. So I think it'll be an interesting conversation. And again, thanks to Garrison for helping to sponsor the show. This week is definitely a large Hump Day Happy Hour glass edition. So tonight, my Dinks cup was not big enough, but the one given to me by the Texas Academy of General Dentistry with my name on it, shout out to the Texas AGD. That one's gonna do. It's got an extra big toddy for me. And Chad, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing good. And before we get started, I just want to say we weren't going to do news tonight. I figured out how we could do this little thing that I want to talk
I
about. And
don't believe you. I
no,
don't believe.
shut
I'll
up.
believe it when I see it.
Shut up.
I will
Yeah.
believe it when I see it.
But I think it's something relevant. And I do think that we're also going to turn it into a consumer facing episode within the next few weeks. We need to figure out how to do this, but I think it's really good. But when we do get to that segment, I do want to say that I'm going to uh, read this little spiel, and then I'm going to introduce Matt, and then we're going to discuss because I think the three of us practicing dentist, I think we have a lot to say about what I'm going to read, but it just really hit me the wrong way yesterday. So
Is it
that's
going
going
to
to be
be
our
a?
news segment tonight, but
Is it
we're
going
going
to
to
be a
have Matt
talk
join us.
amongst
He's going
yourselves
to talk
moment?
amongst ourselves.
Talk amongst
But
yourselves.
hey, I know we always start off. I know you got a lot of, for lack of a better term, shit going on in your life, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, no worries.
Um,
We all do.
But man, I got to tell you, today I did something interesting that I think has legs in dentistry. Um,
You did a
you
crown
know,
prep without pulping out.
that's the second time I've done that in my career.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
But there's a lot of talk going around about injection molding, right? And so Solventum just released a new matrix system for injection molding. And you know, uh, I'm gonna have to say I was pretty freaking impressed. Their previous system was, um, I'm going to say different. It seemed a little bit cumbersome, but man, we got a fantastic result. Now, this is by no ways meant to replace veneers, but I think that we have great options for our patients to stair step their way into the cosmetic kingdom, if you will. And if they're not really willing to drop what it takes for porcelain veneers, which is what I always recommend, I think we have some excellent alternatives out there in composite resin, which happens to be what we're talking about tonight. And this is in no ways meant to be competitive with Garrison because I do use their bands and I think it's fantastic. But this is just a very unique 3D printed way to injection mold composites. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these on the market. It was pretty cool. It was
Yeah,
fun.
I love that, and we're actually using quite a bit. I went from being a little skeptical of the whole injection molding thing. I felt like at the beginning it was kind of overplayed,
Hmm.
but I'm seeing so many applications now. So for me, a lot of what I do is bite rehabilitation, and then very often the aesthetic part of the smile is just kind of leveling out the arch. It's not that the patient came to me with an aesthetic concern in the first place. It's usually, how do I fix the posterior bite and then make everything jive through the front where the
Yeah.
patient's going to be happy, where there's not a big step off. And I'll tell you that that's where injection molding has been a real gift. We don't want to do another couple of onlays or three-quarter crowns or veneers on the front teeth, but I just need a little bit of length on some of these teeth just to make everything look level. And that's been a really good application for it. And so I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
Oh, I'm pumped. It was a lot of fun. Patient was just thrilled, and whenever you have a patient leave that's on the borderline of teary eyed, and I had 3 Solventum employees standing over me, like hovering me today, like wanting to see how this all works because I was the first person in the Metroplex to do it, and the patient looks in the mirror and says, "I have my smile back." That's what it's all about, man.
Love it.
That's what it's all about. So,
What a cool thing. I'm
yeah,
glad you had a good day like that. I've had an absolute shit week. So I'm glad one of us is having something to rally on. I'm with you,
yeah.
Chad. I'm rallying with you.
You're rallying? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, hey, what else you got to say? Anything else exciting?
Not much. Got a kid getting married in a couple of weeks. You know that. And
Wait a
moving.
second.
Yeah.
Was I supposed to book flights for that?
Yeah, you should have
Okay,
probably.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Well, if not, you're just paying a shit ton for him because I'm going to kick your
Yeah.
ass if you're not here. So,
Yeah, the
um,
best was I was like, Ellen, did we RSVP for that? She's like, I took care of it. I was like, oh, thank you. And I wanted to say, and I took care of the flights and the hotel, so you should have RSVP for it. But yeah, we're looking
okay,
forward to it.
we won't go there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
and moving my folks into the house behind me, not this weekend, but next weekend. So just a lot of extra life going on. It's not even that my dental world is that screwed up right now. It's the Jeff Horowitz world that sucks right now. It's not necessarily the dental world. Actually, I have come to grips with that pretty well.
Do you ever wish that you could do like a doodle doodle
Yeah,
doodle
yeah,
doodle, and then just like
absolutely.
disappear and you're in a
Yeah.
whole other universe?
Yeah, that's Wayne
Could
and
you?
Garth. I got the
Yeah,
reference.
yeah.
So,
There you go. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
of course we always do. Jennifer would be looking at us like, huh? What's that?
I
Yeah.
love it. Well, why don't you do
Um,
your little news segment? I'm curious what you got for us.
okay. Well, I'm going to I'm gonna introduce Matt first, and I'm gonna bring him up for this because I think it's
That'll be
something that
cool. Yeah.
that we can all talk about. Um, But first of all, let me introduce our good friend Matt Burton. And I am really excited that he's here because the last few times that he's been on, I've been out of town or on vacation or doing something. And he's a great friend of ours, a great friend of the show. We met him through our buddy, Dirty Schmetty, Dr. Troy Schmetty, out of Walnut Creek or wherever the hell he's from, California. But anyways, he introduced us to this guy, and he's like, "Hey, I think you need to meet this guy. He's one of us." And whenever we hear that, we get kind of giddy. But Matt is a. This was funny. I read this because I read bios, and I kind of like try and find the flaws in them. But my favorite part is the first sentence. Dr. Matthew Burton, DDS, has worked as an established dental practitioner. How the hell do you work as an Matt is an established dental practitioner. He hasn't worked as one. He is one.
He's working towards it. He stayed at a
And
Holiday Inn Express last
yeah,
night. Come on,
and
give the guy a break
he's
here.
from Frankfurter, Illinois. That's where he practices. You ever heard of Frankfurter, Illinois? It's right next to Big Wiener.
Do you know how many people don't know what a Frankfurter is?
It's
like we called them Franks growing up for Frankfurter.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what a Frankfurter is anymore.
It's a suburb of Chicago, dog.
Chicago
dog. In his limited spare time, he decided that he was going to go full nerd on us and start inventing class 2 matrix systems. Doesn't that sound like a hell of a lot of fun?
Well, but here's the deal. There was a problem. Doing back-to-back class 2s was difficult, and this son of a bitch figured out a way around it.
Well, the best part is the other Burton invented snowboards. And this guy decides he's going to decide how to separate teeth and squirt shit in them. Okay. I mean, seriously,
snowboards is cooler, but we'll have this one on, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, I think his invention and what he's done, he works with Garrison Dental. He developed the quad matrix system, which is really innovative and really necessary for our profession. I kind of thought that he was full of it. And I thought that I could do things on my own. And when I started bonding teeth together, I realized that I needed to do something different because people do like to floss their teeth, and the water pick wasn't the end all cure all. So I started using his matrix system, and I'll tell you, and all kidding aside, because we've been joking a lot, it has truly changed my career. And it went from one of those things to where when we started doing composites in our practice this way, it was like, okay, we're going to use that system now. Now it's like, it's there every time. And I love it. And it's awesome. So I'm going to bring Matt on. Matt, glad to have you, buddy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Sorry that I butchered the intro, but we know you well enough that I figured I could razz you a little bit. So,
there's two things. One is that last time, you two D-bags ditched me last time. So it was just me and JB. And I got to say, that was like probably the smoothest show. And she said that she was like,
I'm sure it was.
It was clean. It was like slick. And then like 35 seconds into this one, I'm like, oh man. Yeah. I'm like, this is a whole different animal. Like, here we go. Yeah.
Better put your drinking shoes on for this.
All kidding aside, like we do this show nowadays. We're legit, dude. We've got producers. We've got directors.
You wouldn't know it.
We've got editors and everything. So here's the deal. Our two producers are my son and JB's son.
That's awesome.
My son is also pursuing a career in acting and directing. And so tonight he had an acting gig. And I just want the whole world to know that he is supposedly on his own. By the way, Austin, if you happen to be watching this, your credit card payment is due on Friday, and I only pay a portion of it. He's supposed to be on his own. However, the acting gig tonight is not paid. So like he could get paid here, but he decided to do an acting gig because it's going to go on my reel, Dad.
So goes the world of the actor.
Yeah. So that's what I have to say to my son, who's not here tonight. JB's son has a better excuse. He's at his younger sister's 8th grade graduation. So, I mean, this is her first step towards Harvard. So God bless him. He needs to go there. But yeah, man, it's just the whole world is different. But let me start tonight a little bit differently than usually, because we usually start with a news segment. But
wait, you're going to ask a smart question?
No, I'm not going to ask a question at all. I'm going to pitch something, and then I want us to talk about it for a minute. So there was this lady yesterday, and obviously, nice ultra, dude. Yeah, that a boy. Obviously, we follow social media because this is a social media group, and so one of my favorite places to look is. I live in Keller, Texas. and I'm sure that Frankfurter has one, and Conway, South Carolina has one, where they have a neighborly group, right? My favorite posts are the ones where they start talking about dentistry.
Mhm.
And I start reading it, but I don't know how you all are. I never want to see my name mentioned as a potential candidate for that job, because they're usually looking for the cheapest, or the guy that accepts your insurance, or gal that accepts your insurance, or they're pissed at their previous dentist, right? Well, this one here, I would read the whole thing, but it's long, but I'm going to tell you the gist of it. This lady posts, it starts off, last week I found out my dentist retired. And she went through this long ordeal, and I started reading it, and man, I'm kind of getting teary eyed. She's like, I walked into the office. The office was changed. He wasn't there. I didn't know that he wasn't there. The place looks so modern. And this used to be a place that I went to that felt like home. It had been the same for years. Yes, there were updates, but they were minor updates. And I went in, and everything's been changed. And in the end, she says, I'm sure that the new dentist is as good as the previous one, because I know him well enough that he wouldn't have handed it off to anybody that wasn't. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. And she says, it's not about the faded walls or the crooked pictures. It was just about trust. And I trusted him. And she goes, we spend years complaining about the things that never change, only to discover that one day they were the things that made us feel at home. And I'm like, man, this is a really good and well-written post. Okay, so I start reading the comments. And then this is the one that I am going to read, because man, this just sent me reeling.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
So this young lady says, I know I'm going to get flack for this, but dentistry is the biggest scam around, in my opinion. Our dentist retired, and we've tried at least 3 new places so far and don't like any of them. Let me warn you, the modern dentists have spent tons of money on their offices, and they need to recover that money. They look for problems even though you don't necessarily need immediate care. In reality, some problems take years to develop into anything serious. Nobody will have the perfect mouth. The first visit consists of elaborate x-rays, and they will try to tell you that you have gum disease, and you are flagged for that, or something like that. Then they're going to watch something, and you can never go back for a regular dam cleaning. They will make you have a perio cleaning, which costs twice as much. They point out shadows on the x-rays that may or not be anything to worry about. Can you tell that I don't trust dentists? Please let me know if you find someone that you know, like, and trust. And so, of course, I couldn't leave that alone, because that just really, really pissed me off. So I decided to comment, and I said, as a dentist, I read this and it saddens me. I've spent my entire career building relationships and trust based upon compassion and understanding. There are still good ones out there, and there are many in our area as well as the surrounding areas. Don't give up on our profession, please. And in no way is my response meant to promote my business.
P.S. Need a new grill?
Yeah. How do... There's another thing that happened today that kind of ties into this in my own practice. But how do you respond to something like that, man? I mean, I read the first post and I was like, I get it. I get it. The new sheriff in town, male or female, is going to come in and change things, and people don't like change. But that comment, first of all, wasn't even necessary. But how do we handle that?
That's a great question. I think that I think it's definitely multifactorial. You know, like, so by my office, I've seen a massive change in Frankfurt, not Frankfurt.
Yeah, I know it's Frankfurt. Yeah, sorry, I should have corrected myself.
Like Sausage here with the Bears, which
the
Bears need to gone. You know,
the Indiana Bears.
That's a whole nother show. We got to do like 4 parts of the show. We're never gonna make it.
There's a lot to talk about here.
But we had in my town, you could throw a baseball to either an attorney's office or a dentist's office. Like, no joke. There was dentists everywhere. And a lot of those offices went through transitions because they were all about the same age, like, so it was the 2020 to 2024, everyone was out. Everyone sold to some sort of corporate or all that jazz. And I got to say that for someone who doesn't advertise or market a ton, the unfortunate thing really is that a lack of that care that woman was describing before. Granted, she was talking about the scenery more than, we never really got to how the interaction went with the doctor, right? But that change or the lack of attention to detail or the lack of trust is one of my number one drivers of new patients. And it's passive, like, it is completely passive. It is word of mouth through friends, from bad experiences at other offices. And so, and a lot of it, honestly, is I resonate with some of the perio stuff, because I've seen a few things come back and I'm like, no, you don't have periodontal disease. I think some of this stuff is self-inflicted. But obviously that person was taking, she shot a cannonball at something that could have been knocked over with a ping pong ball. But, she was frustrated. And I think a lot of people are, because there's more of that now than there probably ever has been, because a lot of things are just changing. And but one of the biggest flaws that I see, not to transition, but I will, that people come in and they've had a bad experience with direct composites with their doctor. It was like the tryout period, like they had this doctor for 30 years, they trusted them, and then new sheriff in town, and they come in and they're like, oh, you have a cavity, in between, blah, blah, blah. And then it does not go well. Right. And then they go back in. This time there may or may not be the same doctor, it might be a different doctor. And then that doesn't go well. And then they're at lunch with their friends and they're trying to eat and they can't, and they're like, what the hell's going on, John? Like, what's, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, who's your dentist? And then they come and, then obviously we're happy to take care of them. But it's an interesting era that we live in. And I think that the docs that really care, there are plenty of us, right? I wouldn't say we're few and far between by any means. I think our profession largely cares. It's one of the rare professions that actually gives a crap about a lot of things. But we've gone through a major transition. And I think that these are the side effects of stuff like that. Like, as an industry, everything changed the last 5 years. And there's definitely going to be ripples with that.
Matt, I got to jump in because something you said first, that it is self-inflicted. And I do believe a lot of this is self-inflicted. It was easy for a lot of people to get out after COVID by selling off to corporate. The issue that came in, and what you said is absolutely correct, because I saw this when all of the company A offices opened up in our area. And, patients left because they were accepting their insurance. And, I would say to my patients, listen, I understand if the finances are a concern. Listen, we're always here. You want to try them out. And I'm always here if you need me. And that's how I let the patients go. Most of those patients came back. And the treatment plans that came back, the sad thing about perio is, how much of it is undiagnosed. But then we have this whole thing where it became more of a means to an end, more of a profit center than trying to attack a disease. And it became this thing where, like, every patient that came back to me who were stable for years and years, and it's not like we didn't track perio, they were stable for years and years and years, and would go in there and 4-quadrant scaling and root planing. And so, yes, I do believe that we did a lot of that to ourselves. And the reckoning, and I think the pendulum is coming back the other way, because, ask every new patient next month, ask them what their last dentist's name was. And most of them now cannot tell you the dentist that treats them. they say, oh, I go to Homestown Dental, or I'm at Sand Oaks Dental, or I'm at whatever, right? I'm at this corporate entity that has
Yep.
this cool name that sounds like my neighborhood, but I couldn't tell you the name of the dentist that treated me. And we went from being the most trusted profession of all of the known professions in the United States. Dentistry was the most trusted profession, and because of this corporate influence and the fact that people have now come to see dentistry more as a commodity, has taken us out of that trust built relationship that really made most of our practices.
Sure.
Well, I want to get to class twos because I think you are you really hit the nail on the head. You know, I think we've all had those patients that you're worried about. Oh crap, what if they were out eating with their friends and this was happening? And you're like, oh my God, it's me. You know, I mean, we've all had issues with them in the past. I mean, you might not have, Matt. I mean, you're an innovator, you're a genius, but I certainly have in the past. But you know, we talk about perio, and let's pause there for a second. You know, I think pharma might have built this problem to a certain extent. There's a company that I will not mention, but about 20 years ago, before Matt was even out of school, I got invited to this dinner, and it was sponsored by a perio company, and it was a CE dinner. And here I am. I'm broke. I'm just out of school. I'm working as an associate. I mean, I'm going to go back. I think it might have been 25 years ago. It might have been right after I got out of dental school. And they came out and it was to pitch us this product. Well, we all left with $200 worth, or 2 hours worth of CE, about $200 to $300 worth of product, and $500. Now that's not, they can't do that anymore. Now, when I left, I was like, dude, I got $500. I'm going to go buy a new sand wedge and a round at Cowboys Golf Club in Dallas. I am set. The other people were like, I got $500. I'm going to put this in 6 sextants of every single tooth that there is because they paid me $500. And we all know that it wasn't. It was profitable to pharma and it was profitable to dentists, but it was basically charging a crap load to patients for a product that may or may not work.
Yep. And
the beauty of it is over the past few months, we know that there's a need for those types of products. Okay. There's a need for medicaments that go into the sulcus that can improve the periodontal health of patients. There's a lot of ways that we can improve the periodontal health of patients, and we do all have perio patients. Like Matt said, not everybody's a perio patient. I've certainly been the one that's been like, no, you don't need that. No, you don't need that. No, you don't need that. But I will tell you, there are companies out there that are working to make it affordable to us purchasing the product and to the patient receiving the product. And I think we're going to see a huge change over the next few years with the way that we can treat patients in an affordable manner and actually manage periodontal disease without breaking the bank. So I think there's some good things happening because I think a lot of shade's been thrown at us over the past several years. So with that being said, I'm off my high horse. Let's talk about
Chad. You said let's transition to class twos, and you started talking about perio.
No, I said we need to transition to trash. Whatever I said, but I said I need to talk about this first. So let's talk about class twos.
My perio instructors traumatized me in dental school. Like it was like they were like, oh man, I thought the first person that had gingivitis was gonna like that they were a goner for sure.
I hated perio in dental school.
Oh man, they were rough.
I hated it, but you know, nowadays that might be a specialty that I would pursue. That or prost, which are the two that I didn't understand in dental school, and now I get it more than ever.
Yeah, it takes about 20 years.
Yeah. Figure out what you want to be. Yeah, I hear that.
So anyhow.
So is it too late to say I want to be a pilot?
No. I heard they have good benefits.
Yeah. I mean, you can fly your mom, your wife, your kids, your grandkids. If anybody, I mean, you might be on the back of the bus next to the toilet, which I was there last time. It ain't fun, but you know what? It's free, damn it. It's free.
It's free.
So let me start the class 2 conversation, because I'm amazed at
Don't
how
start it
many
with
dentists.
Perio.
Yeah, I'm done with Perio now.
I think
But I'm
stereo is
amazed.
good, it's fine.
I'm amazed at how many dentists still hold to the Toffelmeyer band for a class 2. And I get it if there's no adjacent tooth. Go for it. I mean, the Toffelmeyer is great for that. But,
Until you look at it on an X-ray.
no, when there's not an adjacent tooth,
Yeah.
it's fine.
No, but on adjacent teeth, you look at it on an X-ray. You're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
my
yeah.
God, what
Yeah,
did I do?
exactly.
Yeah.
So, a long time ago, the first guy that turned me on to the Bitine ring and sectional matrix was Ray Bertolotti. So back in the old Zest, Danville, it was Danville at the time, Ray Bertolotti's company. He was talking about these Bitine rings and sectional matrices. And the first time I took his course, and the first time I ever placed a sectional matrix, put a Bitine ring in between the teeth, and took the thing out. I'm like, oh my God, you can make a contact with a class 2 composite and have it actually look like a contact. And that kind of evolved into like what Garrison has now. But there was a shortcoming before what you did, Matt, because when you had multiple class 2s in a quadrant, and to be really efficient in dentistry, it's nice to get a quadrant of those done at a time. There were really some issues with how the rings would sit, and being able to create those contacts without having to fill one at a time, then move the matrix or the Bitine ring or whatever it was. So I'd love to hear about what your struggles were, because class 2 composites are not that difficult. They are very profitable. Yeah, we don't want to do them all day long, maybe, but it is really the bread and butter of clinical dentistry. So tell me what you were seeing and what you ended up doing with the matrix system that you developed.
Yeah, tell us about your sexual matrices.
Sexual matrices.
I love
this.
I kept thinking Jeff was saying. I was like, Jeff, calm it down a little bit, please.
Jeff, shake the can. Yeah. Let me see how much is left in that big so no, I think that, it started with the problem. We've, dentistry evolved so fast. When I got out of school, I still took the amalgam boards, and I always tell this story in front of any course that I teach or anything. And I'm like, here's my background. Here's where I came from, right? Farm town boy in the middle of nowhere. I had to fix everything on the run, and like solve problems all the time. And when I got to dentistry, I didn't realize it was going to be like a perfect like shoe in. But got out of dental school. It was amalgams, maxed out a credit card, took a Cosmetic course with Bob Margis, and Buddy Mopper, and then Jason Smithson for a posterior course. So I was still a dental student. Actually, I hadn't even got my license yet when I went and took like 4 days worth of courses with them. And Buddy Mopper was like, "Is this legal?" Like his voice, it's like, I don't know. He paid, right? He's fine. But I knew that I was against the wall and behind, because the world was moving faster than education was at that time. And I don't think that's any different now, but that's a whole nother show too. But got out, and you look at like where we've come, right? So composites were, when Jeffro was just talking right there, like that original thing was like a slot prep, right? It was like a super ultra conservative situation. Now we put composite anywhere, anywhere that comes in, and giant amalgam filling, put composite in it, like MODB, put composite in it. And we were trying to use the same tools, to your point, like Toffelmeyer's wedges, wizard wedges, all that jazz. And so there was a lot of focus on like method and technique rather than innovation and advancement, right? So technique is fun, and it's really cool, and it's cool to post about, it's cool to talk about. but you don't want to do highly technique sensitive work beyond what our job already is technique sensitive. You don't want to have to control all these variables along the way for doing simple class twos. And I
Through
think that,
technique.
yeah,
That's
like
tiresome,
if you
right?
have a
Yeah.
Toffelmeyer, then you're
Yeah.
having to create that contact manually, right? You're controlling all the variables the entire time instead of letting a system control it for you. And then you can focus on the nitty gritty, right? And then once you start to focus on the nitty gritty, then you start to get faster, you know. And I look at like myself when I was graduating from school and I'd say like, oh, I just want to be perfect and I want to be fast. How hard can it be, right? And it's tough, and it takes experience, it takes failure, a lot of failure. So anyone who's listening that's a young doctor or still growing, it's like, yeah, you're gonna fail, it's gonna happen, and just learn from what happened, right? And figure it out next time. But when you start to focus on the nitty gritty, then you start to realize like what these systems do for you. You know, like where do you waste time? Polishing, finishing, it's hard with composites, especially in the tough to reach places. So if you're spending a bunch of time fixing what you just did, that's costing you money. Time is super expensive. Polishing burrs are super expensive, you know. So finding things that can control all these variables for you and allow you just to do your job without having to sit there and fingers crossed that everything's going to be okay. Because there's nothing worse than uncertainty in what we do, right? Like it's already tough. I look at patients all the time and I'm like, man, if I just told them the truth right now, and the truth would be there are far more ways that I could injure you right now than actually help you with what you need.
Yeah.
But don't worry, everything's going to go fine, right? So there's all these things we have to constantly focus on, and the last thing we need to do is be like worried about a filling. However, they're super important because we do them all the time, and they just walk through our doors, and they're very profitable if you can do them efficient enough and confidently. So it's a great thing that's kind of gotten like a little bit of a bad, I don't know, not a bad rap, but they're looked over, I think, more than they should be. I think a lot of people focus on higher production procedures, you know, like, you know, clear aligner therapies and full mouth rehabilitations. And then everyone that walks through the door becomes that, right? Like, how am I going to sell this person Invisalign? How am I going to sell them, you know, 10 crowns or, you know, whatever? And it's like, how about you just give them what they need, and they'll send all your friends to you and you'll feel really good about it. And you can also, if you do a quadrant of restorations, it doesn't really cost you anything other than your time and the composite material, which is not very expensive compared to crowns and clear aligners and all that jazz. So, you know, there's all these trade-offs to like how profitable are we actually being with these higher production goals or, you know, procedures versus just the good old fundamental dentistry of directs. And I think it was funny that you mentioned the new injection mold thing earlier, Chad, because I think like I love directs and I loved them for a long time, but I kind of got away from them for a minute before I jumped back in 2016 and got like serious about all this other stuff and started changing things. And I will say that like probably the hardest days of practice and like the lowest production years and the lowest like feel years were the years that I wasn't focused on and doing good direct restorations, you know. And it sounds crazy, but like it's just one of those things that like you fix the problem instantly, and there's nothing like it. Drill, fill, bill, and you're helping someone in that instant. No second visit. You know, it's just a really cool thing to do, and they're repairable. You know, I mean, there's like a million reasons to do it, and it's kind of our thing, right? It's like our art. It's not someone else. It's not another lab doing it, you know, making the crown for you. You're not at the mercy of it. It's like your thing. It's your touch on that patient that goes all that way. And all those other things are important. I think it's important to have, you know, a variety of treatments in your office, but directs are like a core. You know, it's like if you're going to be in the NBA finals, you got to know how to dribble. You know, you got to make free throws.
I'll tell you what, you're right. And I think the thing is after you do something direct, and whether it's as simple as a class 2, now the joy I get from a class 2 is when I see it on a radiograph.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, damn, that looks good. And the joy I get from direct versus, and I love doing veneers. I love them as much as the next, you know, person. I love doing porcelain veneers all day long.
Yep.
But when you do something that's more direct, that you used digital technology and modern day treatment planning, protocols, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And you do it direct, and you're like, I had a bigger hand than any laboratory out there.
Yep.
And so I agree completely, but it's fun, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. The way I did it today was one of the many, but I was very proud of what came out of it. So
yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those things that's like, I look at it too, and I'm like, look, it's funny. I always laugh at the patients that I don't laugh at them, but I laugh with my assistant on the side. But they're like, "Are you sure we need to do this?" Like they come in, and I'm just like, I don't have time to do things that aren't necessary. Like, do you see how busy I am? Like, I mean, the last thing I'm going to do is something like, I would rather go back and just put my head down on my desk for like 10 minutes at this point. I have 3 kids. I'm coaching 2 baseball teams. I'm happily married. We have, a wonderful life, and we're always busy, but I'm like, sometimes you just need to like chill out and rest. And I'm like, I'm not going to do something that I'm not required to do. But you look at directs and all that, and it's like they're constantly walking through the door. Like to your point, like not everyone wants to spend, I'm going to just quote Dr. Appa on his like $50,000 smile, right? All these things, like, and people don't want to go that far, but they want to feel better about themselves. And that can be through like a class 5. I mean, you can make someone feel different about, their smile just by doing some abfraction or stained fractions and things like that with some good composite materials and good methods, and change their tune, change the way they get up in the morning, change their attitude completely.
So when I want you to, tell us about the matrix system that you've developed and where it's headed. And then I have some more detailed questions afterwards. So tell us about what you got going and what you developed.
Sure. So the quad matrix, for those of you who are not familiar with it, hop on garrison.com or follow Garrison on Instagram. You'll find it within about 2 minutes. But it was designed by a dentist for a dentist, which is kind of like where the troubleshooting came in. And its fundamental philosophy is a wedge that splits in half. So I found that a lot of our issues with class 2s, it was buried in what the wedge was doing. It had very little to do with actually the ring or the matrix band. It was the wedge itself. And I think that if you look back at the history of matrix systems and how many different versions of rings do each one of you guys have in your office right now, and guess what? Like, we still had the same problem, right? So it was like something was off. And so I started to redesign the wedge and look at that differently, which is kind of a funny thing, because I would get in front of a course, that was an hour and a half long, and I would sit in front of this room of 150 people, and a guy would like raise his hand and be like, "Are you seriously going to talk about a wedge for 90 minutes? Like, are you out of your mind?" And then I would get done, and he would be like, "I think you could go another 2 hours. Like, this is fascinating, like what's actually happening." And so I just get into the fundamentals of the fundamentals and bring it forward. But that's where that system is. And it's kind of a combination. It's a splitting wedge called the quad wedge. But it's also a combination of Garrison's first Bitine ring, which is the metal peg that goes down, and the latest generation Gen 5 or Gen 6, whatever it is, of Strategy. And so it's a combination of those 2 things together, two different pads to do 2 different things. And it kind of starts to really fine tune class 2 directs instead of trying to mainstream them or oversimplify them, or, just, because not everything is the same. No class 2 is the same. Bunch of different variables. And especially when we get into back-to-backs, it became heavily about technique sensitivity. Because if you went to a dental trade show and you're like, how do you do back-to-back restorations? Like, just open your booth, right? Like, come in and tell me how you do it. Well, I take this one thing, and I like wedge it up against there, and I pack some Teflon tape, and then I fill that, and then I take that out, and then I polish it, and I look at it from the side, and then I put the other one in. I'm like, I'm already done
Yeah.
by the time we're to step 2, right? And it's like, yes, those things are amazing. We've all been there. We love doing it, but like, imagine having a day of that back to back, and it's not practical. And so a lot of this engineering, and that's where we really went to work, and we spent like 2 years developing this and fine tuning it. Was really diving into actually like make sure that it made a difference, right? Not just saying like, here's something that looks cool and different, like, take it and be sick of it in 6 months. It's like, no, this was something we wanted to change. We wanted a paradigm shift with this thing and start to just slowly creep in and change the way that we think about directs in general, but also like how we approach them and our effectiveness in them overall.
So the first time you spoke, I went and bought your wedges. Fantastic. Love them. And I've slowly just become this huge Garrison fan. So love everything you guys are doing and the way that it's transforming, and it is making life easier. And I'm sorry, Jeff, I hijacked you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But I know, Matt, you're going to agree with this. So I think a lot of the problem in clinical dentistry is people look for recipes rather than understanding of why we are doing things a certain way. So there was a time where the wedge served a purpose of separating the teeth so that you could build a good contact. When we worked with amalgam and a Toffelmeyer band, that was the purpose of the wedge. Not only did it restrict the material from going down too far cervically, but it was the separation that we had that enabled us to create a contact. But the wedge really serves a different purpose when you're using it with a good like ring that because the ring now is the separating agent. And the wedge's purpose is really to restrict that extra material from not just going cervically, but from going buccally and creating ledges. And so that's what, I think that's where the disconnect is why are we doing these things? Why are we placing the ring? Why are we placing the wedge? And so that's what I love about the wedge that you designed, because that's what it deserved to be. Was this is not what you're placing to create a contact. The ring is doing that. This is here to create good contours and keep material from going everywhere you don't want it to go.
This is a simple question, and Jeff, I totally agree with you. Nothing frustrates me more than seeing an overhang on an X-ray 6 months later. How do you tell a patient?
Some dentists do that so they can say they're well hung.
Yeah. Tried it. It didn't work. Trust me, man. We try everything in Texas because it's all bigger down here, but the bigger the overhang doesn't necessarily work very well.
I got a big old overhang, baby.
This is a very simple question, but I'm sure a lot of dentists are maybe looking for a good answer. When you're putting that in a patient's mouth on their dentition and they say, "What are you doing now?" How do you describe what you're doing with the matrix and the ring and the wedge?
I just say it's magic.
Magic.
That's what I say. I'm like, it's magic. And if they ask too many questions, I just shove a bite block in there, and then that'll shut them up, right? We got to get done. We got to get through. No, but in all reality, it's kind of fun when certain patients engage with this stuff, and I'll like break it down for them. I'll tell them, and I'll give them like Cliff's Notes, like a 5-minute spiel of dental school on class 2 directs. And then I'm like, we haven't even gotten to the bonding agent yet. Like, you know how much this stuff costs? $100,000 a gallon. They're like, oh my God, like, are you sure this is enough money at the end of the like, yeah, that'll cover it, John. We're good.
Yeah, I've never had a patient say, are you sure this is enough money? It doesn't matter what I've
Tell
said.
them how much the bonding agent is each time.
I used to do that with, what was it, with Gluma? When Gluma first came out, it was the same thing. Here's how much this costs per gallon. But yeah, it didn't work for me.
Speaking of which, I always say that it's a concrete former. I was like, have you ever seen a
Yeah,
concrete
actually,
former?
I do that a lot too.
And
I tell them it's like concrete form born, and I'm just like,
yeah,
we got to create it. We got to create enough separation so when we take this out, there's not a gap. And they're
yeah,
like, oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's it. I'm like, we basically opened up your tooth, and if we squirt this material in there, I'm gonna bond it to the next tooth. And so this forms the concrete because it flows in there like concrete, and then it hardens, and then we just kind of polish it off and refine it. Um, One of the things we haven't gotten to that I think is really, really important because a lot of dentists are out there struggling with this. Um, let's talk for a second bonding agents and composites.
Sure.
So, and once again, this show is sponsored by Garrison, but let's throw out there what are you using? What are you feeling is hot to trot in the dental world right now?
I use two different bonding agents for two different reasons. So one of them is Surpass, developed by John Kanka. So he was the like All Bond 2 guy, which you guys know, but I'll just say it for the rest of the crowd. And which is probably, besides 3M Scotch Bond, probably one of the most trusted and well recognized bonding systems. It was what brought it to be actually composite dentistry. But I use that for buildups because it's really good dentin sealing. I don't get any sensitivity with that. There's no, it's a self etch system, which I'm not a huge fan of in general for if I have etch or if I have enamel. But when I'm doing core buildups, like there's no enamel left,
Yeah.
right? Like we're down in the core of that too. So Surpass has been great for me with minimizing sensitivity. So I've been using that for probably like 13, 14 years since it came out. And then for everything else, then it's just Scotch Bond. And I use like Optibond Solo in dental school. But really I love etching, like I just think that there's so much value in etching. And I've tested different things and I've maybe not etched as far as I should, or maybe not put enough bond on, or, didn't finish my margin where I wanted to. And really the only time I ever see staining or problems is if I didn't etch it far enough and if I didn't bond it far enough, So when I do anterior directs now, even if I'm like closing a black triangle or whatever, I etch the whole tooth, like the whole thing all the way around. I bond the whole tooth because I'm like, I don't know where my finish line is going to be. It's going to be somewhere.
Yeah.
If it's buried and it has enamel and etch on it, you're never going to see it ever. But the only time I would see it come back is when I didn't finish it or I didn't go far enough. It wasn't that I didn't put a crappy filling on it. I just didn't lay down the resin and the etch in the proper place. So those are the two bonding agents. How about you?
It's funny that you say that. First of all, I'm going to tell a Kanka story. Kanka, we were at this conference.
Jeff is scratching his eyeball.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
not his eye. He had his finger in his eye.
Yeah.
No,
Kanka,
John's a friend of the group.
John is a bonding legend. And there was we were at this meeting and somebody was saying, well, I don't like to etch because I don't like to over etch. And John goes, you can over etch. And I'm like listening. And at this point, my ears perked because we've always heard you can over etch teeth.
Yeah.
And John's like, you etch, you rinse it off, you scrub it, you keep it wet, and you're fine. And I'm like, okay, I like this.
That.
Yeah. And the thing is that John is so passionate about what he does. And I do think, his innovative mind with Bisco and with Vista Apex have gone a really, really long way. So when you said Surpass, John Kanka, and I think there's a lot of great, fantastic etchants. I mean, not etchants, but bonding agents on the market.
Yeah.
And there's several that I've used in my practice. I'm becoming an All Bond U fan. And so I'm using All Bond U in my practice. I have a lot of faith in Voco's Futura Bond U. And then I also am a big Scotch Bond Universal guy. I mean, I just think anything that Solventum touches has been very well researched and thought out, and it's great stuff. But there are also other bonding agents. I mean, we went through this huge bonding change in our practice, and there's so many out there that are good, but there's also a lot that we need to stay away from, which of course I'm not going to mention. But I mean, do the research.
It's like a movie's credits
But
line.
I
goes
also
through there.
think that here's the disparity, and again, it kind of goes back to not how you do it, but why you do it. So
Yeah.
whatever material you're using it the way that it was developed to be used.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
and I think that's the biggest problem we see with bonding agents, because so many of them are so good. I'm like y'all. Listen, Scotch Bond has been my go-to for as long as I've been bonding. And I like a lot of other bonding materials. I think they're great. But I just have this trust
Yeah.
in
Yep.
in this material
For sure.
that when it comes down to 10 veneers, do I really want to go in another direction?
No.
Or do I want to use what I've got patients walking around with stuff for 20 years confidently with. So there's that. But I really do believe, I love G Premium Bond. I
Yeah.
think GC
Fantastic.
makes
Another fantastic product, Jeff.
great material.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. Futura Bond is an amazing material. But I also think that a lot of times people just listen to someone on the podium and say, "Oh, I just use this," and they don't really understand how, why, and the applications, and that's the most important piece of it.
And I don't want to throw shade at anybody, because I mean, we know that there's companies out there, that make fantastic bonding agents. It's just every practice is going to be unique and every practice is going to be different. And we need to read the research and the science behind it, understand the bond strengths, and ultimately what it boils down to in my practice. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there: cost and lack of sensitivity.
Yep.
And if both of those line up, it's a winner in my practice.
100%. There's nothing worse than, if you trust your bonding agent enough, then if someone shows back up in your schedule. So we do this thing at my office. It's very simple. We call people the day after every procedure, right? Like every single person gets a call, checkup. How are you? Yeah, it's a filling, a crown prep, 10-unit bridge delivery, whatever. Everybody gets a call. And we always tell them, follow up if anything's wrong. We always give them the spiel about, fillings and how long they should last. But if you trust your bonding agent, someone shows up in your practice 7 days later with sensitivity, you know what it is. It's occlusion, right? I mean, it's occlusion. 100%. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, remember the day when I got out of
you're going to push my function button at 8:59? Now is when you're going to push the function button? Okay. Different episode. Not even going there. Not taking the bait. Not taking the bait, Matt Burton.
I love it. But it's like, you look at that and you're like, all right, you know what it is, you adjust it. But those days of like, oh my God, did I like do something wrong with a bonding agent or whatever? But you trust something like that, you're not even looking away from it. And another thing I started doing with class 2s, and this always gets like weird eyes when I talk about it, when I'm teaching it, is that I etch the tooth before I put a matrix band on it. And I get that look right there. And
I mean, this is interesting. I actually like where you're going with this.
What the thought process was that I would, in very like odd shaped particular restorations, I would get this little stain line in the bottom corner every time, like it would be there. And I'm like, what is this? Like, is it? And I cure the daylights out of it. I take the matrix band, I peel the matrix band back, cure it like before there's any bleeding. Like we cure for like 2 minutes. So everything was cured. And then what I started thinking about was like, geez, like, we're told to keep this field completely dry. And the first thing we do when we get it completely dry is we load it full of liquid, and we just pile liquid in there and then more liquid on top of that. And then we then we dry it out and we expect everything to be gone, but it's not. You know, like I don't think there's any way to like get the etch where it needs to go, because even if you get a good seal on your matrix band next to your tooth, like liquid is liquid. It will find a way, right? I mean, it's going to like creep around the edges. And so using it to my advantage, I etch before I place the matrix band, dry, drop my matrix band, drop my wedge, and then I place my bonding agent. And my bonding agent will definitely, like when I spray it in there, it's going to go around the corners, and then I do a snowplow technique to place my layers, so all the little voids and all that jazz are punched out. But that's changed a lot of things for me. Like in terms of like staining, it is gone. Like I don't get any staining. Sensitivity is, completely eliminated, but mostly just the stain and the prettiness of these restorations is phenomenal, because that edge, that wherever your finish line is, it's always going to be etched and bonded, and it's pretty cool.
I love that, because the viscous
That's
gel
fantastic.
of the etch is not going to do what the thinner liquids are going to do. So yeah, no, I actually love that. Great take.
Well,
Chad, you want to close us out? We're
yeah,
over,
I think,
but we
I
could
think
have
we're
probably done
over,
this
but
for
I mean,
2
I could have
hours.
kept going. I think we need to have Matt back again. I want to have Matt back for a consumer facing to talk about fillings.
I want to have Matt in Myrtle Beach in
Easy,
November.
Jeff, easy.
Yeah. I think when this is all said and done, we should get an apartment together, Matt Burton.
Yeah, I'll cook. I etch before I cook.
JB could come over and check on us like on a weekly basis to make sure we were still alive.
Yeah.
Is everything
well,
okay?
hey, Matt, it's always great to have you. It was a lot of fun tonight. It was even a lot of fun because JB wasn't here. We could be guys and be stupid. I mean, this is great. Jeff.
It's my pleasure. I mean, what email? And here's the thing: is like you see an email with the subject in the subject line that has the word hump and happy hour. Like 10 times out of 10, I'm opening that email.
I'm in.
Right? Like for sure. So happy to be here.
Well, glad you were here. It was a lot of fun. And to our viewers, just remember, I think the moral of the story here is that bread and butter dentistry can be extremely profitable. We don't always have to do the latest, the greatest, the flashiest things. But if we use the best things to accomplish some of the things that we consider minor in our practices, they can be very profitable. And I totally agree. Class 2s can be a huge profit center for your practice. And what a great way to learn how to do it. Look into the Garrison band and matrix system. It is or Garrison matrix and ring system, as along with the wedges, been a huge game changer in my practice, and I think it will be for yours too. We've tried several others, but they are just fantastic. So thank you to Garrison for sponsoring. Thank you to Matt for being here, and this was a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Sounds good, guys.
Love it. Have a good night, guys.
Good night, everybody. And let's see.
I'm still live.